Hello and welcome to today's Student CPD session. The topic for today is confidence in the classroom. This will be relevant for some but not all of you. For some, teachers might actually like to dial down your confidence or maybe infuse it to others. But this specifically is focusing for the students that find it difficult to speak out or struggle to contribute and often don't get heard as much as they should do. If you think about a spectrum, so on your screen at the moment you've got an outline and it's taken to extremes. So you've got the mute where you say basically nothing, and at the other end of the extreme you have someone who is incredibly vocal, will happily answer every question. If the teacher didn't take them in hand, they would lead the lesson. And we all can imagine people in our classroom settings that suit that description. Like I've said at the beginning, this is the extreme version of it. You have real problems if you're here, and you have real problems if you're here. And that's why this slide is entitled The Fine Balance, because it is. Ideally, we want people from this end of the spectrum moving in this direction, and this end of the spectrum maybe moving in this direction, because there are strengths for both. If you're vocal, you're getting your point across, you're being heard, you're being corrected and challenged, and a tutor is going to know where you need guidance. That's a brilliant thing. If you're not saying quite so much, it suggests you're reflective, that you're concentrating on the task in hand, that you're taking in what your peers are saying. Those are both of the positives for each of those scenarios, but there can be some quite damaging aspects too. If you're vocal all of the time, you're not making room for other people to have ideas, and it is quite difficult to jump in and take over. You could also, not on purpose, but be intimidating other people. And I doubt that people want that as an outcome. If you're not saying anything, then you suffer from all of the things that the benefits the very vocal students. A teacher is not going to know how well you have understood a concept. They're not going to be able to offer specific and bespoke guidance to you because they don't necessarily know. And this is why it would be really helpful if you were somewhere, not exactly in the middle, but somewhere in this realm. So if you think about stepping away from the very dark red and you step away from the very pale blue. Now, this, I have to admit, is not necessarily a problem for myself as an individual, although I can recognise where it's a problem for me as a teacher. I sit this end. So I don't have a problem speaking out. Unsurprisingly, as a teacher, talking in front of others does not intimidate me. I don't fear public speaking, and I'm very much a believer of when we think about relationships with others in the video that I shared recently, everybody is a human being, and I have got confidence to approach anybody. It doesn't matter your position or status. So that's why this one's fairly tricky. But as a teacher, I have seen students sit at the very other end of the spectrum and be so intimidated that they won't say anything. Now, again, in terms of a fine balance, it's really important to recognise that if you're someone who is shy or someone who's introvert, you shouldn't be forced into changing who you are. And that's not what this video is about. This is for people who want to be able to say more and be heard more often, but just need a gentle nudge to move away from that extreme. What I would like you to do at this moment is look at this diagram and maybe recreate it in your own notes and put yourself realistically where you currently are. Now, this might work quite nicely for if you're over here and that you're wanting just to make the headway just a little bit further. But equally, you could be at this end and you're wanting to move in the inward direction as well. So pause me for a moment and reflect. Where are you at the moment on this spectrum? Where do you want to be on this spectrum? And bullet point 3 ways that you practically think you can do that. Now, as I've mentioned before, we've looked at where you are on the spectrum and that actually there's benefits to moving from either end of the extremes. What I've asked you to do previously is look at the practical things that you can do to move in whichever direction is appropriate to yourself. Now that's a start, but what you also need to consider are the obstacles that are stopping you at present. What is stopping you in a remote session, for example, unmuting your microphone and putting your point of view across? What is the thing that is causing you to hesitate and allow somebody else to get their voice heard over yours? Because yours is as valuable. As I said a moment ago, everybody is a person, and just because they have a position, whether that's a social position, an occupational position, it doesn't change the fact that they are a person. And so your voice is as important as anybody else's, and your views as valid. So again, if you would like to pause me at this moment and consider what is stopping you, what are the barriers that are taking place? Just pause me and come back in a couple of minutes. Now, knowing your barriers and knowing the actions that you need to take is a good start, but then you actually need to do it. You actually need to be able to get to where you want to be, overcome the barriers, and implement the things that you've identified is going to help you. Now, the starting point for that is going to be yourself. You can only be in control of your own actions. You can't control other people. So the potential is the very vocal student is always going to be there. You can't put tape over their mouth. That's not okay. But what you can do is increase the volume of your inner voice. This week, I've been involved in a number of CPD sessions, and one of them has been about mindfulness and positive thinking. And so this is a slide taken from John Dabrowski's presentation, and I would actively encourage you to look him up. He's a really effective motivational speaker. And he talks about the inner voice that we all have. And what you need to do is to give your inner voice credibility and volume over all of the other things that might be preventing you from moving forward. And this is a list of ideas that he's come up with, which I thought was really effective, so I wanted to share with you at the moment. Your last task for today is to pick 5 of these that are relevant to the things that you want to do. So earlier on, I said to you, where are you? Where do you want to be? And how can you get there? For each of those things, apply one of these statements that is going to help you. So if, for example, it is speaking in a remote session, you might very well repeat, I trust myself completely before you do it. That might be appropriate for that one. If it's going to be volunteering to lead a group project, it could be, I will feel good after this. So at this stage, you're almost matching the affirmation to the task that you're setting for yourself and driving your way forward. I'd be really curious to know as to how you found these helpful and which ones you selected for you. I'm a big fan of Just Do It. Another speaker that I really admire, he often says, do it anyway. So you don't want to do that, or, oh, well, that's really scary, do it anyway. That's really, it's a lot of pressure, do it anyway. So I would add that to my list of the things that I often drive myself with.